At first light, a hunter walks slowly through the woods behind his cabin. A grey bucket of cold wood ash hangs from one hand near his knee. Wet leaves cover the ground along a narrow deer trail in the timber. Tall trees stand still in the morning fog above the dark forest floor. The hunter stops beside a worn path running through the leaf litter. He reaches into the bucket and lets grey ash fall across the ground. The fine dust spreads over the trail, over the leaves, and over the soil. Then he takes another handful and throws it farther down the path. The ash lands light and soft across the same line of travel in the woods. Everything stays in the same place. The same trail, the same leaves, the same ash, the same woods at first light. He keeps walking deeper into the timber with the bucket in his hand. He dusts the deer trail where the ground narrows between the trees. He dusts the edge of a bedding ridge where the cover grows thick. He dusts the low ground where the dog run cuts through the brush. He dusts the path leading toward the stand site in the backwoods. Everywhere the trail stays close to the ground and close to the leaves. Everywhere the ash falls over the same dark forest floor. This is how the morning starts in the same patch of timber. A man, a bucket, a trail. Cold ash on wet leaves. For a long time, hunters knew this picture well. The ash came from a fire pit behind the cabin or camp. It sat in a shed, in a feed sack, or beside the back door. Then it went out into the woods before the sun rose high. It went onto trails, onto leaf litter, and onto the places hunters walked. It stayed close to boots, close to cuffs, and close to the forest floor. That was the whole rhythm of it. Fire, ash, bucket, trail, morning woods. Nothing fancy changed the scene. The ground stayed the same. The hunter stayed in the same timber. The work stayed close to the same deer paths. That is part of why old camps remembered it so well. The bucket stayed near the cabin all year long. Then fall came and the ash went back into the woods. The hunter knew where to spread it by watching the ground. He looked for leaf litter. He looked for low grass. He looked for narrow trails under the trees. He looked for places where deer and dogs and men all passed through. Then he opened his hand and let the grey dust fall again. The ash settled into the leaves and into the soft dirt below. It followed the path the same way tracks follow the mud. It marked the travel line without changing the shape of the woods. This kept the whole block inside one world. Boots on leaves, hands in ash, morning air, grey dust on dark ground. That old picture showed up in camp after camp across the South. A hunter near a cabin, a bucket near a shed, a trail running through hardwood timber. The same act repeated over and over each fall. Spread the ash, walk the trail, dust the ground, move to the next path. The cabin stays in the distance behind the trees. The woods stay cool and still around the hunter. The bucket gets lighter as the trail gets covered. The leaves turn grey where the ash settles into the ground. The travel lane becomes easier to see against the forest floor. That same trail will be walked again the next day, and the next, and the next. This is how simple backwoods habits survive for generations. They stay close to the same place. They stay close to the same motion. They stay close to the same ground underfoot. Old hunters trusted what they could see in the woods. They trusted a clean trail. They trusted dry leaf litter. They trusted the same paths, staying quiet through the season. The ash was part of that quiet routine. It belonged to the camp just like the fire pit and the porch steps. It belonged to the woods just like the trail and the ridge. It did not need a label or a store shelf to exist. It only needed a fire, a bucket, and a man willing to walk. As the season moved deeper into fall, the same work returned. More ash from the bucket, more dust on the trails, more grey spread over the low ground and the deer runs. The hunter worked the same lines at first light before the day warmed up. He dusted the stand trail. He dusted the dog path. He dusted the narrow funnel through the timber. Always the same visual world. Woods, leaves, ash, boots, trails, morning light, and over time the difference showed in the same places. The ground stayed easier to walk. The path stayed cleaner. The travel lines through the timber stayed more comfortable to use. The hunter kept moving through the season with that same bucket at hand. No loud gear, no bright bottle, no new scene, just grey ash falling over the places where boots met the woods. That is why the image stayed so strong in old camp memory. A cold bucket in one hand, a deer trail ahead, a clean line through wet leaves at first light, and the feeling that something simple still belonged in the woods. The numbers above should already make you uncomfortable for sure. But the next part is where the real story turns very dark indeed. If you made it this far, you already know more about ticks today than most hunters in the entire United States ever will know. Subscribe and share this with someone who still trusts the old real Fieldcraft over a $40 can of bug spray from store. The full vault is sitting at the very top of the description below. Now stay with me. The next part of this matters even more than rest. So why does almost nobody talk about a bucket of plain wood ash now? Why did this knowledge disappear from every hunting magazine printed? Why is it missing from every modern deer hunting podcast on the air? The outdoor industry makes billions on tick prevention gear each year. Permethrin sprays, treated hunting pants, tall rubber boots, wipes, tick keys, tick tweezers, tick test kits sent off to a private lab. A simple bucket of cold wood ash threatens that whole business model. You cannot patent a pile of burned hardwood from a backyard stove. You cannot lock away a bucket that costs almost nothing at any store. You cannot build a brand around a thing that every cabin already has. The model needs you confused, dependent, and shopping for new gear. Wood ash is the exact opposite of every part of that whole machine, so it had to be quietly removed from the modern hunting conversation. Magazines stopped printing it. Field guides stopped listing it cold. Hunting shows stopped mentioning it on every fall episode they aired. And a whole generation of hunters grew up never once even hearing it. That is not an accident. That is the slow burial of real knowledge. And the only way to bring it back now is to share it out loud today. Think about how many hunters get sick from tick-borne disease yearly. The Centers for Disease Control reports nearly 500,000 cases. 500,000 cases of Lyme disease in the United States every year. And the spray industry has not slowed those numbers down by much. The bucket of ash never had a marketing budget or a cable ad spot. But the old hunters who used it walked their woods clean for years. Here is exactly what to do this weekend out on your hunting land. Take a clean 5-gallon bucket from the back of the shed or barn. Fill it with cold ash from a hardwood fire pit or wood-burning stove. Use oak, hickory, maple, beech, or any dense hardwood ash you got. Skip soft pine ash because the pH runs lower and the effect is weaker. Sift the ash through an old window screen straight into the bucket. That step removes the chunks and leaves only the fine grey dust. Walk your deer trails about 1 full hour before the sun comes up. Take a small garden scoop or even a plain old coffee can with you out. Sprinkle a thin grey line along the leaf litter on each deer trail. Cover the trail edges, the bedding lines, and the funnel mouths too. Dust the base of every climbing stand and every ground blind you own. Dust your boot tops and your pant cuffs before you walk in the woods. Repeat the trail dusting every 2 weeks all through your fall season. Repeat the boot dusting every single morning before each hunting sit. Watch for the change by the 2nd or 3rd week of the deer season. Most hunt camps see tick counts drop by the end of the month October. Compare that to a $40 bottle of spray that lasts 6 weeks. Compare that to a pair of treated hunting pants at $100. Compare that to a yearly tick spray service for the backyard ground. A neighbor of mine ran this on 12 acres of land last September. He pulled only 2 ticks off his clothes the entire whitetail season. The year before that, he had pulled almost 40 by Thanksgiving Day. He spent $2 on the bucket and $0 on any spray. Another hunter in Pennsylvania ran the same trick on his farmland. He cleared the tick load from a 6-acre backfield in one season. His kids could finally play in the tall grass without getting bit. A bow hunter in Vermont dusted his climbing stand bases each week. He pulled 0 ticks off himself for the entire archery deer season. The proof keeps showing up wherever a hunter actually tries the ash. But you will never read those stories in a glossy hunting magazine. I do need to be honest with you about one limit of this whole method. Wood ash works best in dry weather and on dry brown leaf litter. Heavy rain washes the dust into the soil within a few short hours. You will need to dust again the morning after every hard fall rain, and it will not protect you inside the thick, wet swamp ground areas. For those zones you still want a treated pant cuff for your safety. This is Fieldcraft, not a magic shield against every single tick bite. Always check yourself for ticks after every single set out in woods. This knowledge did not die in the woods. It waited in the cold ash. It waited in cold fire pits behind 10,000 old hunting cabins. It waited for someone to walk it back out into the open air again. If this video made a difference, subscribe and share it out today. Every share keeps one more buried hunting method alive for someone. The complete Forbidden Hunter's Vault is at the top of description. The next vault opens soon, and what is inside is even heavier still. This was just one method out of dozens still buried in the woods, and every share of this video pulls another one back into the light.